Welcome to the Malvern College podcast, where we bring together the community to explore more about life inside and outside the school from the point of view of pupils, staff and parents. Each week we'll be talking to one of the members of the community to find out more, to hear their stories and to get a little deeper into the fabric of life around the school. In this episode, we talk to Mr. Stephen Holroyd, Deputy Head Curriculum, and we'll be learning more about how the college prepares pupils for lifelong learning through the academic studies, co-curriculum and super-curriculum programmes. We also hear about a number of other things, including pupil-led societies and just how popular some of them can be. So come with me as we step into this conversation.
Stephen Holroyd, welcome to our studio. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed catching up with Headmaster Keith Metcalfe, and now I'm very keen to delve a little further into what goes on behind the classroom door at Malvern College, or even if there are such things as classrooms. What better person to ask than the man who has recently been appointed Deputy Head Curriculum. Stephen, can you explain this new role and its place in delivering a transformational education?
Thanks, Tracy. Yes, it's a brand new role at Malvern, a role introduced by our new headmaster, Keith Metcalfe. It's actually a huge role in many ways because it has an overview of the whole curriculum. In many schools, the senior management divides its overview of the curriculum between the academic side and the co-curricular side. But we think that actually rather misses the point of what really a holistic education is about. So rather than separating out what happens in a classroom on the academic side and what happens on the co-curricular side, so sports, music, drama and a variety of other things, what we want to do here is to give a role which has the overview of this holistic curriculum. And so a dual approach really misses the significance that a curriculum can play in the transformation of pupils' lives during their time at a school.
So now you're responsible for creating that cohesion between the lifelong learning across both those programmes and the academic studies. That's the co-curriculum and the super-curriculum programmes. How do you actually manage that?
Well, looking deeper into the role of the Deputy Head Curriculum, underlying that heading, their job is to have an overview of teaching and learning, the way in which heads departments and academic departments work, how learning enhancement, how scholarship works, looking at careers, universities, sport, music, drama, outdoor pursuits, CCF, Duke of Edinburgh, service and outreach, and also the shape of the week and our timetable and what happens during the weekly pattern of school. So given that overview, it gives somebody an opportunity to make sure that all of those things, rather than working in silos, dovetail together for an individual pupil whilst they're at school. If you start with the standpoint that learning should be lifelong, and once you accept that, what you really need to accept is that you have a holistic approach to a curriculum. And so you can see a school like Malvern being in many ways like a preparatory school. You're preparing pupils for university, life after school, life after university, life after Malvern. And we all know that our lives are holistic lives. Yes, we pursue academic interests and careers, but we also, hopefully in a balanced life, pursue things individualised for our own interest. But then also we do a range of co-curriculum. Most people keep being active for the rest of their lives. So it's putting together a programme at school which allows that almost to be not so much mirrored in a school, but to set the foundations from which pupils can have that lifelong holistic experience as well.
And is that something that's building all the time? Presumably you start at a point and then as different subjects or as different co-curricular activities gain popularity, if you like, does that build year by year?
Yes, it builds. So in our holistic curriculum, we've got three elements to it really. So we've got the core academic study curriculum. So that's where our seat of academic learning is, with academic teachers. All pupils in schools should be academic, irrespective of their ability and the level that they are currently operating at. It's a curriculum that has that excellent teaching, the excellent learning, the focused work ethic, but also has a very clear, these days, focus on skill development rather than simply content, knowledge. Lots of skill development through the curriculum. So what we're looking to have on the academic side here is what you might see as a curriculum continuum. So when pupils arrive in year 9, instead of filling their year 9, which we call the foundation year at Malvern, with simply more content. Actually, the important thing about year 9 are the skills they develop then, which then allows them to successfully access year 10 and the year 11 in the GCSE curriculum. But then those GCSE curriculums need to change, so they're not just focused on GCSE exams and content, to enable those pupils to access the skills that they need to access the sixth form curriculum, where we teach both the IB and the A level. Then IB and A level is about developing, yet again, the knowledge and understanding, but also that skill set that allows them to access the next stages past Malvern. So it's that flow of curriculum from when a pupil arrives to us to when a pupil leaves. So the flexibility there. The next part of our curriculum, which is really fundamental to what we do, and an area we've been working in a very focused way over the last 12 months, is on something we call the super curriculum. This is the bit of the curriculum which is very much pupil-led. It's the way in which we can allow our pupils to individualise their academic lives at Malvern. It allows it to flex and change. This is the real dynamic part of learning at Malvern. It allows it to flex and change to reflect our pupils' needs, the directions of their interests they have. It's run by our pupils, and it allows them to focus on intellectual stretch, academic breadth, independence and collaborative research in the context of that link to their academic studies. So, for example, you might have the Mead Read, which is an economics reading group, which is directly linked into the study of economics and named after one of our ex-pupils who was a Nobel Prize winner in economics. But then it might be something such as the Medical Society, which is linked into biology and chemistry, but very much linked into pupils who have a very particular career focus. But then also our super curriculum links into something new, something that is not overtly linked to an academic part of our curriculum. So something like the Film Society or our Black Students' Union are very much focused on broadening that breadth of academic and curriculum focus. And then finally, the third part of our curriculum, which is the co-curriculum, that's really focused on engagement rather than compulsion. Traditionally, the co-curriculum in schools like Malvern was about having to do set things at set times. However, what we have is a very clear set of choices that pupils can make. It's trying to cater for the elite the elite musician, the elite sportsman or woman, but also looking at the aspiration and the participatory. So it's looking at pupils getting into that part of the curriculum in several different ways. It's also, I'd say, is the part of the curriculum that very clearly links into the transferable skills, and particularly the Malvern qualities, those qualities that we think underpin individuals and their successes at Malvern and as they leave Malvern.
That sounds like a tremendous lot of hard work, both for you and also working with the pupils to identify what paths they're going to take.
It is hard work, but I think the key thing in schools is to have your structures and your architectures set up in which things naturally happen. Also, schools thrive on the people you have. If you have the right people, the right pupils, particularly also the right staff, then you have your structures, your staff, and all sorts of provision that it's like a well-oiled machine. And I think COVID has been a real a really upsetting process for education in many ways, but also I think it's been a very good test of education. And we were very pleased with the way in which our academic core, our co-curriculum and our super curriculum ran very, very smoothly when we were an online or a hybrid school, because the structures are there, the people were there. Also, I think in schools, if you have a set of expectations which are ground-up expectations, it's almost like a muscle memory, I think, that a school has, that it doesn't need to be relearnt every year. New pupils arrive, they see what pupils are doing, they see the way that staff are teaching, they see the opportunities available, and they lock into that pattern And there's a degree of natural cycle by which I think really good schools run. So yeah, there is a lot of work that's underpinning that. There's a lot of preparation of excellent lessons. There's a lot of work by pupils in organising their super curriculum and so on. But if you've got those structures in place and those cultural attitudes in place, then actually a lot of your curriculum almost runs itself.
I think you're underplaying that, Mr. Holroyd. I think there's a lot of hard work done there. Well, we talked about societies, and those are led by the pupils, and obviously central to the academic enrichment programme. How do the young people benefit from participation whilst at school, and what does that do for them as they progress in life, obviously onto their careers?
Most of our societies are led by our sixth form, our lower sixth or our upper sixth pupils. They gain all sorts of leadership, communication, organisational skills through simply setting up those societies themselves. But underlying that, the really important things are their desire to seek out areas of intellectual stretch, and seeing that this independent desire to stretch themselves in a variety of ways is a completely natural phenomenon. It's something that they would naturally choose to do. What else do they get out of that? They get the breadth of academic study. So if a school's academic study was solely focused on the taught curriculum, driven by the need for GCSEs, driven by the need for A-levels, driven the need for IB in order to access university, then it will be a pretty narrow curriculum in many ways. This, to some extent, allows the curriculum to be an infinite curriculum at a school. So there's the breadth it gives our pupils, their ability to follow their nose. It also allows them to gain all sorts of academic and intellectual independence, rather than simply relying upon being in a classroom to be taught and to learn, or to learn. It means they become independent in the skills they need and in the directions they have to do that. But also, I think one of the real key things that we see with our pupils is the way in which they work very collaboratively in that experience. The way in which they learn from each other. I mean, one of our most enduring societies, because of course if pupils aren't interested, then the society should naturally cease to exist, but one of our most enduring societies is the Politics and Foreign Affairs Society, which will regularly have between 30 and 50 pupils each week will turn up and work in that society. And they are discussing a huge variety of issues, and given the 44 different nationalities of pupils that we have at Malvern, the way in which they can collaborate and learn with each other on different approaches to really important world events, I think is fantastic.
Setting up future leaders of the future, I feel.
I would hope so. And whether they're leaders in terms of names that you see, or leading by their actions, leading by their deeds, leading from within, leading simply by example, I would hope so.
Well, we've discussed what I think must be 3 of the tenets at Malvern College. What are they in summary, and what's the 4th one?
So the 3 tenets are the academic core, the super curriculum, and the co-curriculum. The 4th part, and absolutely fundamental to successful schools, successful education, successful transformative education, is the quality of pastoral care, and that's built upon the human relationships within a school. And the relationships between teachers and pupils here are really, really excellent. So there are 4 parts of the pastoral care system, very much run through our boarding houses, with a housemaster and housemistress heading up the pastoral care for the pupils in their boarding houses. But then each of our year groups, each of our pupils has a tutor in that year group, and in the 6th form, in fact, you can elect who is your 6th form tutor in relatively small groups in the 6th form. And those are some formal structures that are in there. There are, of course, also our teachers spend nights, evenings on in the boarding house and act as house tutors. So you've got those 3 levels of tutoring, a junior school tutor, a 6th form tutor, and a house tutor. So those are, as I say, formal structures. But actually, pupils know here that all teachers would take a pastoral interest in them. And I think one of the real strengths is, as a teacher, not seeing the pupils who are coming to your class just as pupils coming to your class, in my case, to study economics. But successful teaching has a pastoral understanding of the needs of those pupils at that time as well. So maybe individual needs for some of the pupils in your class, but particularly at the moment, working with the uncertainty with IB and A-level and GCSE exams, one of the key ways in which we can help our pupils keep going successfully with our academic studies is to be very cognizant of the stresses and strains of, one, being online, being in a hybrid school, and also coping with the uncertainty of the way in which the grade award in those three examination systems will function this year. So it's those human relationships which are fundamental. It's not about a process. It's about conversations. It's about that fundamental, I think, underpinning belief by teachers and a school that everybody can perform at a high level, whatever they're doing. And supporting them in their desires to do that.
Yes, there's certainly been some challenging times. And that actually did occur to me, that if you've got somebody who is showing a deal of interest in a very broad breadth of areas, would you have, perhaps advise them to cut down a little? Because it sounds to me as if there are so many opportunities at Malvern College, it might be difficult if somebody gets involved in absolutely everything. So presumably that pastoral side of it is to advise and to sort of push in the right direction, as it were, to maximise their time at the college.
Yes, very much so. It's the tutor's role, and to have an overview of that, although we have all sorts of systems in place that have an overview of that. So as in charge of the curriculum myself, I have an overview of pupil performance, and often in their academic studies, and often one of the first signals you might see is somebody's work in their subjects, both in terms of the effort they're putting in, and maybe in terms of the quality of their work starting to take a downturn. So that's worthy of investigation. We're also very aware of who all our busy pupils are at school, and all of them are very busy, but particularly busy. And also tutors are very aware of who these pupils are, and all of them will take proactive conversations with these pupils about how are they finding things. They'll be very aware, for instance, if you've got somebody who's a music scholar, if they're taking a grade 8 or their diploma, or they're coming up to a big performance, the tutors will be very aware of the stresses and strains of that, the need for focus. And yet again, it's this conversation. It's all about the pupil. So on the co-curriculum in particular, and that's often one of the areas I find there can be, should we say, overlapping needs and stresses on pupils. It's about the leaders of those co-curricula having a discussion. So if you've got a pupil who's in a play, but they're also a really good sportsman or woman, it's about those two, the coach and the director, having a conversation about that pupil and saying, right, this week, particularly busy week, let's help them with their priority. But also I think our pupils are very good at voicing where those stresses and strains are, by talking to their tutors, again, in that very strong relationship between teacher or tutor and pupil. And certainly at this time, we found our pupils being very good at talking with us, those of us who are managing courses or with tutors, about the challenges for them of preparing for their international baccalaureate exams, which won't be happening, but therefore predicted grades, or preparing for the teacher assessment grades for GCSEs and A-levels. We found pupils being very good at talking through that process with them, and then we can make adjustments to help them.
Certainly sounds like you're setting them up beautifully for life. We all have to balance things, don't we? And you're helping them to make that balance at this stage. Now, somebody has told me, Stephen, that you've been part of Malvern College for over 30 years. You must have seen some changes.
Yes, I arrived as a very young 23-year-old back in 1990, so I've seen a few changes. I'd have to say that the Malvern College I'm with now is still at heart the same Malvern College as it was when I arrived. So those Malvern qualities are still there. The buildings are still there, a few new buildings. I mean, what are the key changes? The big year for me in many ways was 1992. In 1992, in 1 year, we went co-ed. We introduced the International Baccalaureate, and we actually bought our first prep school or developed a working relationship with our first prep school. And I think we can trace a lot of what the college is back to that September, and looking at how fundamental the IB is to our sixth form work and that lifelong learning which underpins the IB philosophy. It is, I remember it being an all-boys school for 2 years. It is so much a better school being co-ed than it was an all-boys school. And also, 1992, that was the signal of the beginning of our relationship with other schools, and I think the really exciting for us point in time we are now is the family of Malvern schools and the relationship we have with two very close prep schools geographically, but schools in a number of different countries and increasingly so. So that for me is exciting. The other thing I think also is I've really noticed, but I think has been a huge boost to education at Malvern is running what is quite a traditional British education, but very clearly in an international context. So yes, we are innovative. We transform ourselves. We transform our pupils, but the way in which our school sort of mirrors the internationalism that is our world today, I think is really exciting for our pupils. It's certainly exciting for me as a teacher, and that I think has been a big move as well. But underpinning the college are still the fundamental ideals that I were there when I joined in a number of decades ago now.
I'm not trying to make you feel old, honestly. We talked about people going on and having careers, and how do you feel when you hear of people from Malvern College succeeding in their chosen careers?
I'd have to say it's a real tingle factor. One of the joys I have, it's one of the many joys I have as teaching at a school like Malvern, is teaching pupils who are going to be amazing. First of all, teaching economists who I've got a sneaking suspicion they're getting close to as good as I am after a degree already, and just about holding on, and discussing with economists who are going to go and work in central banks, going to be the economic advisors to chancellors, who are going to be teaching other economists. So on a very small focused level as that. There's another buzz of people who perhaps at Malvern it didn't quite go as it was planned for them initially, but then you bump into them 2, 3, 5, 10 years later, and you see what it did mean to them in the end. The buzz of seeing people who have had to really strive, suddenly the light bulb clicking, and so on. So yeah, it's one thing I suppose, having been here that long, it does give you a significant number of pupils to bump into again around the world in a variety of different places, and to see them in their new jobs, in their new family situations. I've actually employed people I've taught as well, which is quite interesting. And I don't think I've yet taught a son or a daughter of somebody I've taught yet, but they are around, and I've certainly taught uncles and aunts of people I'm currently teaching. So that link is wonderful to see, because then you see that lifelong learning. You hope it's going to happen, and you know it does, but actually being in contact with it is a real thrill and a real privilege to see them carrying on their work they've done with us and the ideals that we stand by.
Well, Stephen Holroyd, it's been delightful to talk to you today, to catch up on what you do as Deputy Head Curriculum, and I have to say, you sound like a very busy man.
Thank you very much, Tracy. It's been lovely to talk.
Well, that was Stephen Holroyd from Malvern College. Thank you to Mr. Holroyd for taking the time to talk to us today. Now, if you'd like to get to know the school even deeper, then don't forget to check out Malvern College on social. Whether it's Twitter, Instagram or Facebook, just search Malvern College. And if you know anyone who you think might appreciate listening to this episode, then please share it with them. You can always find this channel by searching Malvern College in your podcast directory. And you can follow or subscribe too, which means you'll get a small notification the next time an episode is released. But until then, thank you for listening to this episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.